11 years ago, on the first Malala Day, you stood at the United Nations and you talked about the importance of education. That's really where your journey began in this quest that you have continued to follow. I just want to get your emotions today, 11 years on, when we are seeing Afghan girls, for example, being locked out of their schools, girls over the age of 12. It's been over 1,000 days where, as a matter of policy by the state, they are not allowed to go to school.
It breaks my heart when I think that 11 years later, since my UN speech, we are witnessing a world where there's a country where girls are banned from education after grade 6. This is shocking. I thought this would be a story of the past. But it's unimaginable that even in 2024, we are witnessing a time when girls have been barred from schools for more than 3 years in Afghanistan. And they're not only missing their classes, but some of them are seeing a very dark future ahead of them. At the UN, I saw so many leaders support me, stand by me, and make this commitment that they care about girls' education. But when I look at what we're witnessing right now, it really disappoints me that we have not been able to protect the right to education for Afghan girls for the past 3 years. So this is a very urgent and critical time for me. We cannot wait any longer. The Afghan girls and activists are calling us to take action. So my hope is that we raise awareness about what is happening in Afghanistan and do more for them, make it an urgent and critical issue, stand in solidarity with the Afghan women and girls, and ask our leaders that they do not make any compromises on the rights of women and girls, and that this should be a top priority for them.
But they have made compromises, haven't they? I mean, if you look at the recent actions of the UN, where they held talks with the Taliban and shut Afghan women and girls out from the talks. Whenever I've traveled to Afghanistan, certainly after the Taliban takeover, Afghan girls who go to secret schools, for example, Afghan women who have been pushed out of the public eye, say to me they feel abandoned and they feel betrayed.
I was watching the Doha talks, and of course these are conversations between the UN envoys and the Taliban officials, and it was shocking to me that Afghan women and girls were excluded from those conversations. The civil society was excluded from that conversation. It is important because the future of Afghan women is decided in their absence. This should be completely unacceptable. We know that we have principles. We are committed to gender equality. We talk about feminist principles. These are not principled engagements if women are excluded. And Afghan women who have fought so hard for their rights in the past 20 years, and especially in the past 3 years since the Taliban took over, they're fighting for their rights. They're putting their lives at risk. We have heard so many stories of women being beaten, women being put in prisons. We need to hear these women very clearly that they cannot be excluded from those rooms. It has sent a message of betrayal to Afghan women. Going forward, I think it's really critical for all country members to ensure that they put the voices of Afghan women at the front, that they follow their lead, and that Afghan women are included in all the conversations where decisions about their future are made.
I speak to some teenage girls in Kabul especially, and they tell me they're heartbroken because they feel hopeless and helpless. Because, you know, while they're in these secret schools and trying to learn and smuggle their way into the spaces, that's not a substitute for proper education. This is something you can relate to because you, in your childhood, went through this. Can you just talk our viewers through the emotion of that the feeling that, is my right being taken away from me?
I can't imagine what 11-year-old Afghan girl is going through right now. I remember when I was 11 and girls' education was banned in my hometown in Pakistan by the Pakistani Taliban, who have the same ideology as the Taliban in Afghanistan. They do not believe in girls' education and women's empowerment. And they know that education is the foundation of empowering a woman. So they take away education first. And right now, when I think about my Afghan sisters, I know that they understand that they cannot have a future without an education. but I really admire their courage, their resilience, that they are learning through these secret schools. They are using online digital platforms to keep their, to continue their education. Of course, there are so many challenges. Many of them have not even seen their classrooms again, but there are many who are trying to find ways to keep learning. But it's our job to help them in providing alternative education. Through Malala Fund, we are supporting education activists in Afghanistan who are doing programs like that. For instance, one organization, they are providing lessons through radios, television, and digital platforms, and we are reaching up to 1 million young people, and there are many more activists who are doing work in the country and outside the country. So I think for us, it's our responsibility to support education for girls in this time, but at the same time, we need to ensure that going to school is a normal thing for a girl. It is not a crime, it is not a sin, and no girl should be banned from it.
Afghans, as a result, many are on the run because of the economic situation, and many whose fathers are like yours want their girls to get an education, so they leave the country. Afghans make up now one of the highest number of asylum seekers that cross the channel into the UK. We have a new Labour government in this country. What is your message to them? We often hear about resolving issues in the source country. What can be done?
This is a great opportunity for the new government in the UK, that they stand by their values and stand with the girls and women of Afghanistan. I know that the Labour Party is committed to gender equality and humanity, so I believe that it's a great opportunity for them to share their solidarity with Afghan women, make sure that they're holding the Taliban to account, and they're not engaging with the Taliban with the exclusion of the women, and they protect the right to education and the right to work for women and girls in Afghanistan. I think we will be watching them. I hope that they prioritize their commitment to Afghan girls in their 100-day plan, in their foreign policy.
Do you think that they should be talking to the Taliban on some level because they are the de facto government in the country?
The conversation is never about whether they should talk to the Taliban or not. The conversation has always been about principled engagements with the Taliban. And there can be no principled engagements if women and girls and if the civil society are excluded. And that's the point we're trying to highlight, that women and girls' rights have to be on the agenda. You cannot exclude that topic, and you have to make sure that the women are present there. Afghanistan is a very diverse country. We need people from all the ethnic backgrounds to be there. We need women to be there, because they are making decisions about the future of Afghanistan, and women are half of the population. You cannot have that future when half of the population is excluded from those conversations.
When you were at your darkest point, did you have hope? And if so, what message do you have to those Afghan girls?
I carry hope because I believe that there are other people who care, and I want to convey this message to Afghan girls that I stand with them. There are many like me who stand with them. I have met so many leaders, UN officials from Malta to Mexico to Albania and South Africa who are sharing their solidarity. I know that there is a campaign led by Afghan women activists to codify gender apartheid, to ensure that we can hold the Taliban to account, and we can put pressure on countries to hold them to account when they are normalizing the relationships with the Taliban. So there has to be no compromise on women's rights. So I'm hoping that more countries will join. I have had the chance to visit South Africa as well, and I have talked to so many people. I have engaged with South Africa, with Afghan activists, with South African activists, and this campaign that they are leading together to codify gender apartheid is so critical. And we're watching leaders, especially those who are part of the feminist foreign policy country group. I want to see how they are stepping forward to show their commitment to protecting women's rights. And we also should be looking at Muslim countries as well. I think the Taliban are misusing the name of Islam, and they need to be held accountable for that as well. So I want more countries Muslim countries to step ahead and challenge the Taliban and protect the right to education for girls and the right to work for women in the Islamic context.
It's been almost 3 years since the Taliban takeover. Do you think that world leaders who talk the talk with you, but do you think they are stepping up, or are they just giving you lip service?
When I look back at the past 3 years, and when I look at the fact that it has been more than 1,000 days that girls above grade 6 have not seen a classroom. It does disappoint me, and it does make me feel that leaders are not doing enough. But then on the other hand, what gives me optimism and a bit of hope is the countries who have been talking about codifying gender apartheid, who have been talking about helping Afghan women and girls. But there are many more countries who need to be held accountable, and I do want to push the UK government as well to do more, and I hope that the new Prime Minister and the new government will be prioritizing doing something for Afghan women and girls.
You've also talked about the plight of Palestinians in Gaza. How concerned are you about the instability that we're seeing, the fact that education has been completely turned on its head and it's now a fight for survival? And can they really rebuild and pick up after this conflict is over?
We have been watching what's happening in Gaza, and it is heartbreaking to see how millions of people are getting displaced. And you look at children, you look at girls and how their lives are impacted. More than 80% of the schools have been damaged. All of the universities have been bombed, and when I picture this, I know that the child in Gaza, a Palestinian child, does not have that normal childhood that every child deserves. They cannot have that education. They cannot play together with their friends. And it's this right to a normal life that every child deserves, whether that child is in Afghanistan or Gaza or any part of the world. My hope is that we continue to push for a ceasefire, an immediate and lasting ceasefire, and we prioritize sending humanitarian aid, and we really help shape the future where these children are safe, their schools are not bombed, they are not bombed.
You know, I often hear this idea that there are double standards in terms of the conflict in Ukraine versus what's happening in Gaza, the number of displaced people that are being taken from Ukraine versus those from Afghanistan and Syria, for example. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it is a very challenging time because, of course, we know that there are so many crises in the world, in different parts of the world, and from Sudan to Congo to Afghanistan and parts of Pakistan and Gaza and Ukraine. And when you look at that, it is overwhelming. I fully understand that. I think we all have the capacity to have empathy for all of these people who are suffering at the same time. And I think we have the capacity to be providing them the help and the support that they need. So I don't think it should be picking and it should be making these different choices. I think we should have our humanitarian aid and support for everybody, and we should be sharing our solidarity with everyone. This is the message of humanity that we all can convey, and I think this is the true representation of what this human civilization means.
I want to also get a sense of, you know, on that Malala Day 11 years ago, when you were just a teenager speaking to world leaders, what positive change have you seen in that time? We've talked about the misery, but what have you seen that's improved in terms of education?
It does make me happy that there have been many improvements in access to education. What really touches my heart is the commitment of women and girls to fight for their rights. I have met so many girls from around the world, from Iraq to Nigeria to Afghanistan and Brazil and in many different places. And when I see the resilience of these girls and their commitment to help bring change in the world, it moves me because I know that they are not resting, they are restless, and they want to fight for a better world. So I join them and I follow their footsteps, and I hope that other people will also join them. And in this moment, I'm thinking of Afghan girls and Afghan women and their brave fight for their rights, where they are fighting for their dignity. They do not want to live under a gender apartheid where their rights are denied. They want everybody to stand with them. So I'm here to share this day with them. I'm here to share this moment with them, and I hope that we will echo their voices.
Malala, thank you so much for joining us and for your continued fight for the rights of Afghan women and others.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do.